I pulled into the parking lot of the old brick apartment building, the rain-slicked streets of this small city reflecting the dull glow of streetlights. The distant hum of traffic felt like a reminder that the world kept moving, even if I didn't want it to. Boxes thudded onto the wet pavement as I unloaded alone, my heart heavy with the past I'd buried deep. Arguments that echoed, doors slammed shut. Across the hall, through the open door of her apartment, she watched. Tall frame leaning against the frame, her gaze steady, unflinching. It cut through me, made me feel seen in ways I wasn't ready for. I turned away, pulling back into my isolation, stacking boxes higher like a wall. But starting over meant risking it all. Being truly seen could shatter everything I'd hidden. Then the knocks came, echoing down the hall, pulling me toward the first encounter. The building squatted on the edge of this small city, all faded brick and narrow stairs that creaked underfoot. The hallway carried a constant fluorescent hum, like a low-grade headache, mixed with faint smells drifting from her door. Fresh coffee grounds and damp earth, as if she'd just come in from tending something outside. I'd driven here from the flatlands back home, escaping the weight of a relationship that had twisted me into knots, the kind where love turned to control, and my queer self stayed locked away from a family that quoted scripture like weapons. They didn't know who I was, not really, and I'd kept it that way, packing up my life in the dead of night to start fresh here, where no one knew my name. The drizzle started as I hauled the last box from the car, my muscles aching from the long drive, shoulders burning like they'd carried more than cardboard. My mind replayed the old arguments, her voice sharp, calling me selfish for wanting space, for the parts of me she couldn't touch. I wiped rain from my face, breath coming in short bursts, when she appeared at the building's side door. Tall, with shoulders that spoke of work outdoors, her hands calloused and steady as she crossed the lot without a word. "Need a hand?" Her voice was low, direct, cutting through the patter of rain like it belonged to the ground itself. I hesitated, but the boxes were slipping, and pride lost to practicality. She grabbed two without waiting, her grip firm on the wet edges. We rode the ancient elevator in silence, the lift groaning like it shared my exhaustion. "I'm Riley," she said finally, eyes on the flickering numbers above the door. "Across the hall." I nodded, mumbling my name, Alex, keeping my answers short when she asked why the move. "Just a fresh start," I said, voice flat, guarding the cracks. The doors opened to our floor, and she carried the boxes to my door, setting them down with a thud that echoed my pulse. That's when it happened. As I fumbled keys, one box tipped, spilling contents. A faded photo fluttered out, me younger, arm around an ex, both of us smiling in a way that hid the storm coming. Her eyes lingered on it, not prying, but seeing. The weight of it hung there, unspoken, like she sensed the story etched in the creases. My stomach tightened. I snatched it up, shoving it back in. "Thanks for the help," I muttered, stepping inside. She nodded, that unflinching gaze holding mine a second too long. "Anytime." Evening fell heavy outside, the city lights smudging in the rain. Later, as I wrestled a shelf into place, the bolt stripped. I knocked on her door for a tool, and there she stood, toolbox in hand, inviting me in for that doorstep talk that would start unraveling everything. Her apartment door swung open, and the scent hit me first. Rich coffee lingering, mixed with soil from a half-watered fern on the windowsill. Books stacked uneven on every surface, spines cracked like they'd been read in the margins of long nights. No clutter, just lived-in purpose. She handed me the wrench, her fingers rough against mine, calluses from whatever work kept her hands like that. "Shelf giving you trouble?" Riley asked, stepping aside to let me in. I nodded, avoiding the pull of her space, the way the dim lamp cast shadows that softened the edges of everything. I followed her to the kitchen counter, where tools lay scattered like forgotten thoughts. She demonstrated the fix, turning the wrench, slow, deliberate, her hands steady as roots in earth. I watched, mesmerized by the control in her grip, the way her knuckles flexed without waste. Mine shook a little, betraying the mess inside. The fresh start I'd claimed was just a move, not an escape from a love that had demanded I shrink myself small. She noticed but didn't comment, just past the tool back. Twist from the bottom, she said, voice gravel rough, like she'd shouted over machinery all day. We talked then, me perched on a stool, her leaning against the sink. I gave the safe version. Left the flatlands for this small city because the air felt different. Jobs were steady, a clean slate. Fresh start, I repeated, the words tasting thin. She nodded, eyes holding mine, seeing the gaps I left. The family calls I dodged, the identity I wrapped in silence. No pity in her look, just quiet acknowledgement, like she'd carried her own silences. This place grows on you, she said, sharing spots. The river trail where willows dipped low, the market with bruised apples cheap on Sundays. Her voice carried the day's wear, a shift in the city's maintenance yards, hauling gravel and fixing lines. Rapport built in those fragments, her stories pulling mine closer without force. As I finished, handing back the wrench, our fingers brushed. Hers warm, mine chilled from the metal. Heat sparked up my arm, sharp and unbidden, settling low in my chest. I pulled away fast, too fast, the air between us thickening, like fog off the river. What was that? Want flickered, dangerous, a crack in the walls I'd built. I wanted the ease of her steadiness, the way she moved through her space without apology. But exposure loomed. If she saw too much, the queer heart I'd hidden from scripture and slammed doors, from an ex who twisted it into shame, it could drag me back to isolation. Or worse, force me to face it. Thanks, I muttered, stepping toward the door, pulse thudding. She watched me go, that unflinching gaze lingering. Night, she said simply. I crossed the hall, door clicking shut behind me, but the spark stayed, humming under my skin. Next morning, the hallway light buzzed as I headed out, coffee mug empty in hand. She was there, locking her door, thermos in grip. Our eyes met, and she lifted it. Brewed extra. Want some? I paused, the empty mug dangling from my fingers. The offer hung there, simple but loaded, like everything with her. Sure, I said, voice quieter than I meant. She unlocked her door again, thermos already unscrewed, pouring dark liquid into my mug. Steam curled up, carrying that rich, bitter scent that cut through the hallway's stale air. We stepped inside, her kitchen small but warm, counters scarred from use, a single window framing the gray morning. She leaned against the sink, arms crossed loose, watching as I took a sip. Hot, strong, grounding. Better than the instant stuff I'd been choking down. The sounds from outside filtered in. Tires hissing on wet pavement, a distant horn blaring from the commute rush. This small city never slept fully. Workers heading to the yards or offices, engines rumbling like a constant undercurrent. But in here, silence wrapped us, thick and shared, the kind that amplified the quiet we both hauled around. No small talk at first, just the mug's warmth seeping into my palms. Then she broke it, gentle, like testing thin ice. That photo yesterday looked like it carried some weight. Her eyes didn't push, just waited, steady as the steam rising between us. I set the mug down, fingers tracing the rim. Heat built in my chest, not just from the coffee. Old life, I said, words slipping out before I could cage them. I used to paint. Nothing big, just sketches of places that felt safe. Left my kit behind when I moved. Couldn't pack the mess it stirred up. It was small, that detail. A half-finished canvas of a quiet field, abandoned after my ex called it a waste, after family dinners where art meant distraction from real duties. Riley nodded, no tilt of pity, just a slow breath. Sounds like you saw things clear. That's not mess, it's seeing. Her arm brushed the counter near mine as she reached for her own mug, the space between us shrinking to inches. Fabric of her shirt grazed my sleeve, her skin warm through it, sending a pull low in my gut, unspoken but heavy. The air thickened, charged like before a storm. Her nearness stirring something I'd buried. Want, raw and unfiltered. For someone who didn't demand I hide. I didn't move away, breath catching on the edge of it. She held there too, gaze dropping to the mugs, then back to me. Family rift hit me hard too, she said then, voice dropping gravel low. Dad walked out years back, after I wouldn't play the part he wanted. Left me handling the silence alone, working shifts to fill it. Her words mirrored mine, wounds echoing without force, conservative roots pulling tight, identities shoved down. No details spilled, just enough to bridge us, her isolation a twin to my own. I felt it then, the draw deepening, her steadiness calling to the fractures I'd carried across states. But the building stirred outside, murmurs drifting from the stairs, Mrs. Harlan's voice carrying, whispering about the new tenant and the neighbor helping too much. Small city talk spread fast here, judgments sharp as church bells, especially for two women lingering close. Risk hummed under it. If seen like this, doors might close, stairs follow, dragging old fears back, family cutting ties, the queer self exposed to a town not ready. My pulse quickened, stakes rising with the coffee's warmth, yet her presence anchored, unflinching. We finished the brew in that charged quiet, mugs clinking in the sink. "Park's clear this time of day," she said, grabbing her jacket. "Walk off the rain?" I nodded, the pull too strong to resist, stepping out together, toward deeper woods under the overcast sky. The park sat on the city's edge, where concrete gave way to patchy grass and willows that bent low over the river. Overcast sky pressed down, heavy with the threat of more rain, turning everything gray and muted. We walked the gravel path, leaves crunching under our boots, the sound sharp against the wind's low whine. Riley led the way to a bench, scarred wood facing the water, and we sat close enough that our shoulders nearly touched. Her hands moved as she talked, open gestures that cut through the chill, emphasizing each word like she was laying down roots. "Trust," she said, about the trail here, how it cleared her head after long shifts. I listened, the wind tugging at my jacket, pulling at the edges of me, too. I didn't plan to say it. The words just came, spilling out as the river rushed past, indifferent. My ex, she said I was too much. Too quiet sometimes, too intense others. Like I didn't fit the shape she wanted. My voice caught, the partial truth hanging there. How she'd pulled away when I hinted at the deeper parts, the ones that didn't align with her straight-laced world. The queer pulse I'd learned to muffle. Tears pricked, hot and unbidden, but I held them back, blinking at the gray water. It wasn't the full story, not the family gatherings where I'd smiled through sermons on sin, hiding who I was to keep the peace. But it cracked something open, the rejection echoing in the wind. Riley turned, her knee brushing mine, warmth seeping through denim against the bite of the air. She didn't rush in, just let the silence settle, her breath visible in short puffs. Then she shared, voice cracking low like gravel under tires. My family disowned me after I came out. Dad couldn't look at me, said it broke the line we'd built. Mom just faded. Her words trembled on the edge, the disownment raw, a wound she'd patched with work and this small city's routines. No details poured, but the pain mirrored mine, conservative chains pulling tight until they snapped. Her hand reached, clasping mine briefly, calluses rough against my palm. A squeeze that said she understood the isolation, the way silence could weigh more than words. Wind whipped across my skin, sharp and cold, raising goose flesh under my sleeves, but her nearness countered it, a steady heat that chased the chill from my bones. My heart thudded, heavy in my chest, each beat sinking with the river's rush, the crunch of distant leaves. It felt alive, this pull, her unflinching presence drawing out the woman I'd buried, the one who sketched hidden desires, who longed for touch without shame. I leaned closer, the bench creaking, her shoulder solid against mine now. That's when I spotted her, Mrs. Harlan from the building, bundled in a coat, walking her dog on the far path. Her eyes narrowed, flicking our way, the clasped hands not missed in the open air. Panic rose, sharp in my throat. Small city whispers could spread like floodwater, painting us as something to judge, pulling family calls I'd dodged right to my door. The queer truth, half spoken here, could unravel everything. Stairs in the halls, doors locked against me, the fresh start crumbling under intolerance. I tensed, hands slipping from hers, breath shallow. But Riley didn't flinch. She held her ground, gaze steady on the path ahead, her body a quiet shield. "Let them look," she murmured, voice firm as the bench beneath us. "We're just walking." Her words anchored, cutting the fear's edge, her warmth a buffer against the wind and the watching eyes. In that moment, something shifted inside. I saw myself through her gaze. Not the hidden fragments, the too much pieces my ex had rejected, the silenced self my family never knew, but whole, accepted in the gray light, the first taste of it sweet on my tongue, like rain finally breaking. No more shrinking. Her seeing pulled me taller, the cracks filling with possibility. We stood, leaves scattering at our feet, the wind easing as clouds thickened. "Storm's coming," she said, nodding skyward. We headed back, steps quicker, the building's lights flickering on as thunder rumbled distant. Inside, the hallway hummed, but her door opened wide, pulling us into the warmth where conversation would turn intimate. The evening storm trapping us together. Thunder rolled closer as we crossed the threshold, the door clicking shut behind us like a seal against the world. Rain lashed the windows in sheets, rattling the panes in their frames, the building groaning under the wind's push. Her living room felt smaller in the storm's grip, bookshelves casting long shadows from the single lamp. She flicked a switch, but the power flickered once, twice, then died, plunging us into gray twilight. "Candles," she said, voice steady as she moved to a drawer, pulling out thick white stubs and a lighter. Matches scratched, flames caught, and soft glow spread across the space, dancing on the worn couch cushions, the stack of unopened mail on the table. We settled there, knees inches apart, the air thick with rain's metallic tang seeping through cracks. Mugs of tea she'd brewed earlier steamed between us, her thumb tracing the edge, slow, deliberate, like she was mapping the ceramics curve. The warmth from the cup seeped into my hands, but it was her nearness that heated the room, her shoulder brushing mine as she shifted. I stared at the flames flicker, words building pressure in my chest. The storm outside mirrored the churn inside, winds howling like the doubts I'd carried here. "It's not just the ex," I said finally, voice low against the thunder's boom. The full weight spilled then, the hidden parts I'd guarded like fragile sketches in a drawer. "I'm queer. Always have been, but back home, family saw it as wrong. Scripture thrown like stones, doors locked on questions. I hid it, twisted myself to fit, until the silence choked me. This small city, it's quieter, but the intolerance lingers. In stares, in church whispers down the block. Coming out here could mean alone again, doors closing for good." The confession hung, raw, my breath short as rain drummed harder. Fear twisted low, the vulnerability exposed like a nerve under skin. Riley didn't flinch. Her thumb paused on the mug, eyes holding mine in the candlelight, steady as the flame's core. "I know that weight," she said, voice gravel rough, cracking just at the edges. She set the mug down, hands open on her lap. "Came out at 19, after Dad's farm work turned to silence when I wouldn't marry the neighbor's son. Family cut lines, no calls, no visits, just echoes in the fields I still tend on weekends. Scars run deep, like calluses you can't sand off." Her words carried the old pain, shared without demand, her presence an anchor in the dim. No rush to fill the quiet, just her breath sinking with mine, slow inhales that matched the storm's rhythm. Our knees touched then, deliberate on her part, the contact electric through denim, warmth spreading up my thigh. I didn't pull away. The couch tipped under us, pulling closer in the flicker, her arm along the backrest, fingers grazing my shoulder. Breaths mingled, shallow at first, then deeper, sinking with the rain's patter. Tension coiled, physical now, her scent of earth and soap cutting the damp air, my pulse thudding in my ears louder than thunder. Want-built, unspoken. Her gaze dropping to my lips, then back up, unflinching. My phone buzzed on the table, screen lighting the shadows. Family. Mom's name. The one call I dreaded. Echoing old controls, questions about settling down right, fitting the mold. I silenced it, but the vibration lingered, a reminder of chains across states. They don't know, I whispered, the admission peaking, tears hot in my throat. I long for the real me, the one who sketches what she feels, who touches without hiding. But it's terrifying. The words broke free, the emotional crest crashing like the storm outside. Riley leaned in, hand covering mine. Calluses rough, but gentle. It's possible, she said, voice firm, eyes locking with mine. You don't have to hide here. Not with me seeing you. Her words affirmed, solid as the couch beneath us, cracking the last barrier. The pole snapped. Our lips met, soft at first, then deeper, the kiss breaking through like lightning's release. Storm raged on, but inside, tension uncoiled, mirroring the inner flood, rain washing clean as we pressed closer. Sunlight sliced through the blinds, pale and insistent, pulling me from sleep. Bodies tangled under the rumpled sheets, her arm heavy across my waist, breath warm against my neck. The storm's fury had faded to drips from the eaves, leaving a quiet that felt too fragile, like glass underfoot. I shifted, her skin sliding against mine, and for a moment, everything held. Her scent of earth and rain clinging to the pillows, the curve of her hip fitting my palm. Last night's confessions lingered, the kiss a bridge we'd crossed. But reality crept in with the light, sharpening edges I'd softened in the dark. A sharp knock shattered it, from the hall, insistent, like fingers tapping impatience into wood. Riley stirred, eyes opening slow, gray in the morning haze. Ignore it, she murmured, hand tightening on my side. But the knock came again, louder, Mrs. Harlan's voice muffled through the door. Riley, you up? Heard noises last night. Storm bad? We froze, sheets twisting as I sat up, heart slamming against ribs. The building's thin walls carried everything, our closeness, the storm's cover gone, now exposed in daylight. I pulled the blanket higher, pulse racing, the queer truth we'd shared suddenly a beacon for judgments I'd fled. She rose, pulling on a shirt, movements deliberate but edged with tension. At the door, she cracked it just enough. Mrs. Harlan's face appeared, lines and prying, eyes flicking past to the rumpled room. Saw you two come in together. Wet, looking close. Folks talk, you know. New girl and you. People notice. The words landed like gravel, stirring the gossip I'd sensed building. Whispers in the laundry, stares in the stairwell. Small city currents, swift and unforgiving, where two women lingering meant questions, meant exclusion from the market nods, the church potlucks down the block. Stakes surged. Exposure could summon family echoes, doors slamming not just here but back home, the fresh start dissolving into isolation sharper than before. I dressed quick in the bedroom, shirt clinging damp, but their voices pulled me out. Riley stood firm, arms crossed. We're neighbors, helping each other. Mrs. Harlan's gaze sharpened on me, then away. Just saying, town's small. Be careful. The door shut, but the air hummed with it, the risk coiling tight. I paced, chest tight, the buzz of streets outside filtering up. Cars splashing through puddles, voices calling from sidewalks, a world ready to judge. This is why I hide, I said, words spilling sharp. One night, and now what? They'll talk until it chases me out. Argument flared then, her turning to me, voice gravel rough but edged. Hiding won't stop it. You think pulling back erases what they see? I stopped, facing her, the mirror across the room catching my reflection. Eyes shadowed, stance hunched like the woman I buried. Fear clawed, loss risking everything. Her steady gaze, the self I'd glimpsed last night, all crumbling under stairs. I can't lose this place, can't face them knowing. My words cracked, pulling away toward the door, the hall's fluorescent hum mocking from beyond. She stepped close, unflinching, hand on my arm, grip firm. Choose, Alex. Self-acceptance or isolation. You can't have both. Her demand hung, eyes locking mine, seeing the strength I'd missed, the lines of my jaw set, the quiet fire in my stance. The city buzzed louder outside, potential judgments pressing like wind against windows, heart racing at the edge of it all. But in her gaze, I turned to the mirror. There I was, not fragments, but whole. The woman who'd driven here, who'd kissed in the storm, resilience etched in the set of my shoulders. She always saw it. I decided then, breath steadying, to stand. No more shrinking. Evening fell soft, rain cleared, and we met in the hall. Hands reached without hesitation, fingers lacing, pulling us toward reconciliation's warmth. We stepped out into the cooling evening, the small city's streets bathed in the soft haze of street lamps flickering on. Riley's arm linked through mine, her elbow hooking solid against my side. A quiet claim that felt natural now, like the gravel crunching under our boots. The air carried the clean scent of rain-washed asphalt, mixed with distant wood smoke from someone's chimney. We walked the blocks without rush, her pace matching mine, whispers slipping between us about what came next. The river trail hikes on weekends, her showing me the hidden spots where wildflowers pushed through cracked concrete. Me sketching the lines of her hands at rest. We could fix up that shelf together, she said, voice low, her thumb brushing my sleeve. Future plans unfolded easy, no weight behind them. Just the pull of possibilities stretching out like the lengthening shadows. My phone buzzed in my pocket as we turned the corner, the screen lighting up with Mom's name again, insistent as the evening chill. I stopped under a lamppost, heart thudding but steady now. Riley's presence a warm anchor at my elbow. I answered, voice even, no tremor. Hey, Mom. Her questions tumbled out. When was I settling, finding someone proper, coming back for the holidays? The old script loomed, the one that demanded I fit, hide the queer edges under polite nods. But Riley's fingers squeezed mine, unseen but felt, grounding me like roots in soil. I'm good here, I said, words firm. Seeing someone who gets me, the real me. Silence stretched on her end, then a hesitant breath. Not acceptance, but a crack in the door. I hung up, exhale long, her support turning the confrontation into a step, not a fall. Back in the building, we shared coffee in her kitchen, the brew dark and hot, tasting of freedom. Bitter edge softened by cream, steam curling like released tension. Bodies leaned close over the mugs, her knee pressing mine under the table, warmth seeping through cloth. The fluorescent hum from the hall faded behind the door, replaced by the low tick of her wall clock, our breaths sinking in the quiet. No rush, just the lean of her shoulder against mine, the way her gaze held without demand, seeing the woman I'd embraced. No more fragments, just whole. The building shifted around us in the days that followed. Mrs. Harlan nodded in the hall one morning, her dog tugging at the leash, no prying edge to her glance. Other neighbors, the guy from downstairs with his toolbox, the widow on the end with her potted herbs, started small talks, invitations to the market shared without side eyes. Isolation peeled away layer by layer, the small city's quiet turning companionable, doors opening wider than before. No grand welcomes, just the slow nod of community forming. Stares replaced by passing smiles. Inside, growth rooted deep. The hidden woman, the one who'd sketched desires in secret, who'd muffled her pulse under family weight, emerged steady, self-acceptance solidifying like concrete setting under sun. No more shrinking in mirrors, I stood taller, her unflinching gaze reflecting back the strength I'd always carried, just unseen. High stakes resolved in that mutual seeing, love not as a mask but as clear eyes meeting, no hiding left, just us, walking the blocks arms linked, the world a little less confining. That quiet night in, we settled on her couch, books open but forgotten, her hand tracing patterns on my knee. The story circled close, emotional threads weaving tight, pulling us toward the deepening bond ahead. I looked at her then, across the dim glow of the lamp, her face half-shadowed, and saw how much I'd changed. The woman who'd pulled into this parking lot weeks ago, rain blurring the windshield, heart locked tight against the world. She was still there, but softer now, edges worn by Riley's quiet pull. No more hunching in mirrors, dodging my own reflection like it held accusations. Her gaze met mine, still observant, tracing the lines of my jaw, but inviting now, drawing me in without the old weight of fear. It held me steady, that look, like her hands on a wrench, firm, knowing the turn before it happened. We shifted on the couch, her fingers lacing through mine, palms pressing warm and calloused against my skin. The small city's lights twinkled outside the window, smudges of yellow against the black, distant enough to feel safe. "What do you see out there?" she asked, voice low, thumb stroking the back of my hand in slow circles. Dreams spilled then, easy as breath. Me picking up the sketch pad again, not hiding pages under the bed, but leaving them open on the table, lines capturing the river's bend, her profile in morning light. Her turn came next, words gravel rough. Tending the community plot down by the tracks, hands in soil with others who didn't question the dirt under nails or the company kept. No grand plans, just fragments building. Weekends at the market, her arm through mine as we haggled over apples. Evenings here with the door unlocked, scents of coffee and earth mingling without walls between. Hands stayed intertwined, the pressure a quiet vow, pulling futures close. Lingering fears surfaced in the quiet, shadows creeping like the night's chill through the panes. "What if the whispers turn sharp?" I said, voice catching on the edge, the old panic of family lines cutting off, the small city's undercurrent pulling us under. What if I slip back, hide again? She squeezed my hand, dry humor cracking through, her lips twitching. "Then I'll drag you out, like hauling gravel from a stuck truck. Steady hands, remember? We don't bury what fits." Her laugh rumbled low, easing the knot in my chest, turning dread to something lighter, like rain drying on warm stone. No lectures, just that unflinching truth, her humor a tool sharpening the fear dull. The vision stretched hopeful from there. Life, building, openly in this place that once felt like a cage. The small city no longer confined, its streets opening wide. Neighbors nodding without side glances. The river trail a path we claimed. Her truck parked next to mine without question. No more dodging church steps or family calls that demanded masks. Instead, sketches shared over breakfast. Her calluses brushing my wrist as we planned the next shift together. Vulnerability wove through it all. Not a weakness, but strength. The cracks I'd feared now letting light in. Her seeing turning isolation to roots. I leaned closer, her breath warm on my cheek. The air between us thick with that shared quiet. Our lips met then, soft and sure. A final, intimate press that sealed the promise. Ongoing acceptance, no rush. Just the slow burn of us fitting. Her hand cupped my neck, thumb tracing the pulse there, steady as always. We broke apart, foreheads touching, breaths mingling in the lamp's glow. The emotional threads tightened, self-acceptance blooming full, vulnerability the ground we stood on. Fade to morning, light filtering through curtains, her arm across me again. The story complete in that held breath. Days blurred into routines that wove us tighter, her apartment bleeding into mine like ink on wet paper. Morning started with the clink of mugs in her kitchen, coffee brewing strong as her grip on the pot, my sketches scattered on the table beside her thermos. We'd head out together, her truck rumbling beside my car to the yards, me dropping sketches at the local print shop while she hauled lines under the sun. Evenings brought us back, doors propped open, scents mingling, her earth-damp clothes drying on the line, my charcoal dust settling on shared counters. It felt like home, not the hollow echo I'd fled, but solid, her space expanding to fit us both without question. The external test loomed midweek, a call from Mom announcing a visit. Unannounced, her voice tight with concern over my settling. Family arriving in 2 days, scripture tucked in her purse like ammunition, ready to probe the life I'd built. Panic flickered, old controls tightening my chest, but Riley saw it in the way my hands clenched the phone. We prepared together that night, her sitting cross-legged on the floor, me pacing the rug. Breathe through it, she said, voice gravel steady, pulling me down beside her. No lectures, just her hand on my knee, thumb circling slow, teaching patience in the wait, like the way she mended fences at the old farm plot, knot by knot, without rushing the wire's twist. We rehearsed words, her unflinching eyes holding mine, turning dread to resolve. You're not hiding anymore. Show her the woman I see. Her patience mirrored the small acts that deepened us, tending the fern on her sill, fingers pressing soil firm but gentle, showing me how to let roots settle without force. It echoed the inner work, her touch uncoiling the knots I'd carried, vulnerability no longer a fracture, but a bridge. Passion ignited fully one evening, storm echoes gone, just us on the couch after the call. Lights dim, her hand slid under my shirt, calluses rough against my skin, pulling me close. Bodies connected raw, honest, no masks, just breaths ragged. Her lips tracing my collarbone, mine clutching her back as tension released in waves. Skin to skin, the world narrowed to her weight above me, the thud of heart sinking, desire unfiltered, her whispers gravel low against my ear. This is us, she murmured. No rush, just the slow burn of fitting. Doubt crept in the quiet after, shadows lengthening on the walls. What if she pulls you back? I asked, voice small, fears of family rifts mirroring her own old scars. Riley shifted, propping on an elbow, gaze steady in the lamplight. Love sees true. No hiding pulls us apart. Her words affirmed, dry humor flickering as she traced my jaw. I'd chase you down the river trail first. We laughed, low and shared, overcoming the pull of old chains, her certainty anchoring mine. The small city's backdrop faded then, street hum distant, focus sharpening on our quiet truths, hands linked in the dim, the bond deepening like roots under concrete. Unbreakable. Dawn broke over the city balcony, our hands intertwined, fingers laced tight against the railing, the first light warming our skin as the river glinted below. If you felt that quiet pull of being truly seen, share your story in the comments. Subscribe for more tales of finding home in unexpected gazes.